So we are reading At the Dark End of the Street, Black Women, Rape and Resistance, A New History of the Civil Rights Movement from Rosa Parks to the Rise of Black Power by Danielle McGuire. And our sessions it started June 3rd and they last until July 29th. They are from 6:30 to 8.
The Citizens Coordinating Committee was formed in protest, led by Joanne Robinson, Rufus Lewis, and Fred Gray, demanding Colvin's unconditional acquittal. They discussed the risk of boycotting the buses, but decided to appeal to the city and bus officials directly, and if that failed, go to court. Their first meeting with the police commissioner and bus company manager resulted in a seating scheme based on a plan they had in Mobile, Alabama, where there was no firm color line. That meeting failed. The second meeting with the mayor and the city attorneys ended in a stalemate. And so your question was, Black leaders in Montgomery embraced the politics of respectability to combat the backlash of white supremacy. Do you feel this is a current strategy or pitfall still used by our leaders today?
Well, I think that it is a current strategy and pitfall of not just our leaders, but within the Black community. In this chapter, I learned that there were 2 women up to really represent the boycott, but they weren't, clean enough. The media could dig up stuff about them. Claudette had gotten pregnant, and I think the other girl, Mary, I think her name was, an alcoholic, and she was dark skinned, and they needed this prim and proper woman to represent boycott, so that no matter what happened, media can do anything. And I think that Black people, we definitely still do that to each other. And I think it's incredibly sad because we keep separating. I don't know, I think it adds division. There's a difference between having an opinion and standing by it, but when you hierarchy who's important based off their social status or sexual preference or color, how Black are they? I think that divides us, and I don't know. I think it really stifles our growth as a community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Georgette? Anybody?
Well,
Anita?
I actually heard very little of Brandy's comment. I'm not sure if something wrong with her is going on, but I heard, this word, every other word is that. Like that.
I heard Randy pretty well, actually.
You did? I didn't hear hardly anything. Just now, when she spoke, I just heard nothing, hardly at all.
Yeah. Do you have earphones on? No?
No, I don't. But I hear you, everyone else clearly, except Randy.
Okay. Well, do you want to take your own? What's your take on the politics of respectability?
I think the politics of respectability would be great if we had respectable politicians today.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it as a pitfall. Maybe then, before we had as much corruption and disrespect among ourselves, it was the way to go. But no, we don't have any respectable politicians. And yes, it is going to be a pitfall because we're losing our credibility because we don't have those respectable politicians. We have. I'm not sure if I guess this I can call names, but we're not doing very well. That's all I can say with our politicians, and even some that went back as far as the civil right have fallen to corruption. So right now, it really is a pitfall for us, because every time that happens, inadvertently, it affects everyone, because we lose more and more and more of our credibility. It's a problem. So it doesn't really apply today. It doesn't apply today. It has nothing to do with race, creed, whether light or dark, black, or whether you're gay or heterosexual. It has nothing to do with just we don't have those, those type of citizens anymore. Representing us. Some are going to jail for drugs. Others are having promiscuous affairs. Some decide they want to go out and buy Michael Jackson memorabilia. I'm just not trying to call any names. I don't, and not that I care about calling names. Believe me, I will call some names. But hearing can be alone, and believe it or not, I live in probably at one time the #1 most corrupt state in the nation, and it's a tiny place. But all our mayors go to jail, all our governors go to jail. I mean, we don't have anyone that's not in jail. So our house, and that's the truth. That's the state of Connecticut. It's small. Now I think we're the second most corrupt, or third state in the country, and that's all races, black and white. So no one has any representation these days. No one has any credibility. It's a pitfall.
Yeah. Georgette?
Well, I think during that period they would spend so much time and effort trying to create the perfect black person, even though it didn't matter, how religious you were, how nice you were, nicely dressed, where you worked, if you were working. You were still subject to all the hate and vitriol and physical abuse that they could heap upon you if they wanted to. So, and yet still to get public opinion on their side as they stepped out into this unknown territory of fighting the laws, and trying to prove them unjust and trying to win. They felt forced to be as politically correct as possible. So I think that's, and I don't know how, I wonder how the young lady and the women felt who had been abused, and these were their cases and they were being called out of their name, and with trumped up charges. How they felt when the case was always against them. They were called whores and sluts or whatever. And they had no one to support them. And then when they were really trying to get the movement together, they wouldn't select these women, say, no, you can't be up here because you got baggage on you, or they can put some baggage on you. We need somebody unimpeachable, and I guess you have to make that, like the women had been making sacrifices for all those years, sacrificing on the bus, being abused, sacrificing walking down the street, the chance of being abused, and still speaking out about it, and trying to take a stand. Here's another sacrifice they have to make, for the greater good of everyone. And, going back to what you said about the respectability, the politics of respectability, they come out and the butter won't melt in their mouths and they promise you everything, but you look, behind that closet they have, and you'll see all sorts of things. And sooner or later it's coming out in the news.
Yeah.
If I may say something, the sad part about it is that you don't have to look. Years ago, and although people would argue the fact whether it was right or wrong, at least you had to, if you weren't a virgin and you didn't have any children, well, you could pretend you was one until you're 80. You did something behind your closed doors, you know, and it stayed behind your closed doors. That's where it stayed. But now you don't have to dig for anything. It's just right out there, you
Yeah.
know. So you remember that how black mothers would say, "What goes on in this house stays in this house."
Yeah.
Well, that's not the way it is anymore. What goes on in this house is everybody's business because you put your business out there. So I
Right.
mean, we're really in a very bad way. There's nothing, and what's really ironic about it is that it seems to be society has decided it's okay.
Mhm.
You know, you can you can totally destroy folks' lives, and it's okay. You can go out and be a politician, do a little crack, keep a low profile, come back and run for governor again. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. But but Benita, that my understanding is that there has always been significant difference in how Americans view the personal lives of their politicians compared to, our Western European counterparts. Um, and so, certainly back in the 1940s, when all of this was going on, um, America in general was, I mean, we're reading about all the dirt, going out looking for little black girls and all um, the things that were actually going on. But overall in society, there was this, I guess, attitude of politics of respectability, even among white folks, which was, I guess, why you could almost shame them into um, living up to some of their ideals, like we talked about last week, and the black soldiers being able to say, well, we're out fighting for democracy because we say this is what we're about, but yet we've got this contradiction going on at home. And so, so people have to actually care or give you know give a care, um, in order for the politics of respectability to have any influence over them. So I don't know. I'm rambling, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, should it matter what the personal lives of our politicians are like, black or white? Because, and you guys know I'm a preacher's kid, and so for me, it's always been clear that people have these images, about what public figures should be like, and the images never match the true reality of their lives. And so I think what we're seeing now, it's ugly in a lot of cases, but I think what we're seeing now is the reality of who people are. And so, we can make a decision that if we want to elect a crack at it, then we know what we're doing. Would you rather do that knowing what you're doing, or pretend that he's not?
Good point.
Huh?
I said that's a good point. We love illusion, though.
Right.
well, no,
Right.
I want the truth because I live in the truth. However, I don't know how productive you can be representing me and others if you're a crack addict, although I may know it. You know, maybe I'm just not up with 2014 way of doing politics. I'm not saying not to be yourself, because Michelle, you know, if anybody is themselves, it's me. Yeah, I am a very open person. Yeah. However, I think that, you know, we have people that are young, like Randy. Randy's a young woman, and she's learning a lot. And isn't there a thing called set example anymore? Or do we not need those either?
Well, if Randy were to tell me that she was a crack addict, I would not be voting her into Congress.
but this is what's happening, though.
Yeah.
Which tells us something wrong with not the politicians. Nothing wrong with them. They're up front. You're right. There's something wrong with the folks that are voting for these folks. You know, I mean, how do you knock them? I mean, there's nothing wrong with them at all. You know, it's the folks that are voting for them. And once again, it doesn't make a difference. I mean,
it's the same kind of situation with churches where, you know, you have these ministers that, you know, they've got babies by several different women running around the congregation. You know, they're out screwing little boys, doing whatever it is they want to do. And yet people come back to church on Sunday morning.
Well, there's only one Reverend Odom. There was only one Reverend Odom. And I knew the man. Okay, so we're not going to get to the minister thing because we know what that's about. But as I said, there's one Reverend Odom, and unfortunately, he's not here with us today. Okay, but it's the truth, though. I mean, any way you look at it, it's just, I mean, what happened? I don't know what. Something's terribly wrong. Maybe it's me. Maybe everybody else is fine. Stop laughing at me. It's the truth, girl. Okay, Georgia.
No, I mean, you know, and I say this all the time. I mean, a lot of things have really happened to our ability to be stand-up, respectable kinds of citizens. Substandard education, you know, we've been hit. The influx of drugs into our community, the preponderance of legal prescription drugs that people are on, you know, the poor quality of the food that we're eating and the air that we're breathing. We have been hit. We are not the same people that we used to be, and we can't even pretend like we are.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm very afraid.
Yeah?
I'm very, very afraid.
Yeah, you should be.
And I am.
You should be. Randy, did we hear from you?
Yeah, I answered. I was the first one who answered the question.
Okay. Well, what else do you have to say about it?
I'm with Vanita. Maybe it's me. Sometimes that's why I laugh, because I was just thinking that last night. I don't know. I think that there has been a major shift. I think that just from me reading history and my grandparents, my big mama, I think there's been a major shift in thinking. I think that a lot of people try to use Obama as a example of post-racial, you know, like anxiety, and that racism doesn't exist. And I think that, I don't know, times to me are starting to mirror a lot of the history I've read, and it's scary. Mm-hmm. It is. And I just, from just reading about these women and how they spoke and how they stood up, how they, you know, irritated a few people and were scared, that I'm just going to keep speaking and keep acknowledging and keep reading and learning, because I think right now that's the only form of resistance that I feel powerful with. Nobody's marching as much. Nobody's boycotting half the things we need to be boycotting. And the only thing we really have right now are these books and these memories and speeches, these women. So that's what I'm leaning on right now for hope.
Yeah, I say all the time we need a 500-year plan, because that's the only way I can keep hope alive for myself. Because when you think about the complexity and the just overwhelming amount of problems that we have, I mean, it's easy to get turned off and decide not to do anything because it's too much. But when I think of it as a 500-year plan, and really, and really, when I think about our world and I think about our problems, I think about it more from a human perspective than a Black person's perspective, because I think our problems are just so connected, and that we can't solve one without it having some impact on the other. So I mean, if we really went way back in history, certainly to the days of the Bible, but however old man may actually be, human nature, we just we got a lot of issues, and we keep going around in circles and circles and circles because I think we're not taking the time ever to stop and analyze and set out a course of doing things differently, of raising our children differently, of consciously trying to create a new world. We don't have a 500-year plan that I know of, but I think that if we thought of it in that kind of in those kinds of terms, that it's taken us a long time to get to the sort of devastating point that we're at. We're really talking about the end of the world. This is basically where we are, and we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get out of here overnight. So I don't think you should be hopeless, Randy. I don't think anybody should be hopeless, but I don't think we should be feeling the burden of, or feeling the personal responsibility of, having to try to solve all of the world's problems on our own or in our own lifetime, because they're much bigger than that. So I'm sorry, I don't like to speechify.
That's okay, you sounded great. That was great points there.